Hello, everyone, from wherever you are watching from. My name is Derek, and you are welcome for this episode. This is Speak Out, a program of Move Network International, where a talk show where we invite different individuals to just come and talk about issues that directly and indirectly affect young people. And we try to craft some solutions and suggest some ways on how we can overcome some of these stressing challenges. A few weeks ago, we started on our new series on human trafficking, or you can call it trafficking in person. And in the last episode, we were looking at what human trafficking basically is. And today, with me, I have a wonderful young lady who is going to introduce herself shortly, and we are going to be talking about the legal side of human trafficking. So before we get on with any other further questions, I'm going to give her the opportunity to introduce herself and tell us who she is, what she does, and then we can continue. Yes, please.
My name is Diana Garrett. I'm a lawyer by training. I've been practicing law for 12 years now and working as a pro bono lawyer for Willow International for the past 7 years now, just helping out with cases and training and things like that. I'm now into fundraising, and though I still practice law when it's necessary, like now, to do this with you.
All right, thank you so much, Diana. We are very glad and very excited to have you here today. So before I get into any other questions concerning the legal part of human trafficking, just for context, for someone who is watching this for the first time, I would like you to just give us a brief background of what human trafficking is and who can be a victim of human trafficking. And also maybe we talk a little bit of who is a perpetrator and how can someone be called a perpetrator in this case of human trafficking.
So trafficking in persons, or modern slavery, is defined. I'm going to just read from the law so that there's no guesswork. Is the process of recruiting, harboring, or transferring people into a situation of exploitation through the use of violence, deception, fraud, and force, and usually to work against their will, to do something illegal. Yes. So trafficking can occur anywhere in the world, and it can happen to anybody. Anybody can be trafficked. I know sometimes people think, no, that can't happen to me, but it can happen to you. Who would be a perpetrator? Let me describe who would be involved. A victim. So who would be a victim of trafficking? A victim of trafficking would be a person who is in the process of being trafficked. That's someone who is being moved, or who is being coerced to do work, or who is being groomed to be trafficked. And it can be anybody. It can be a woman, a man, a boy, a girl, but the most vulnerable people are women and children. And then a trafficker or a perpetrator, like you said, is anyone who would benefit from the exploitation of that victim. And a trafficker can be anybody. It can be a relative, a friend, an acquaintance, a classmate, a friend on social media, a neighbor, a caretaker, a parent, a pastor, sheikh, a politician, investor, civil servant. So many people can be traffickers. So traffickers tend to use violence or manipulation or false promises of well-paying jobs or romantic relationships to lure victims into trafficking. So this would be someone will tell you, oh, I have this great job here in this place. Maybe you're earning X much. I can pay you 3 times that much. And then you think, okay, I like that job. But the person the whole time is just lying to you. They're just trying to get you into that situation, or drag you by force and take you. Maybe you work on a farm or sexual exploitation, or maybe harvest your organs or whatever. And there you have no say. But they always use manipulation and tricks and things like that to get you into that situation.
That was very helpful, Diana. You have given us a brief background, and I think that is very good for whoever is watching right now. At least they know where we are at. So I would like us to dive straight into the legal bit of what we are going to be discussing today. I was reading somewhere, and I saw that the UN, through in 2008, in one of the conventions that they had, they had set out that there should be some legal policies that guide the different things and activities regarding human trafficking. And so today, I would like us to discuss, in the context of Uganda or even Africa at large, are there any policies or regulations that have been put in place to combat or again to combat these issues of human trafficking? And if they are there, what are those laws? What do they say about human trafficking? Or what is it that it stipulates really about human trafficking? Yes, back to you.
So I cannot speak for the whole of Africa,
Okay.
but for Uganda, I know the law in place is the Trafficking in Persons Act, the TIP Act, and that governs the offense of trafficking in persons. So that's been enforced since 2019, I believe. And so it sets out, for example, there has to be an act which is recruitment, transportation, would lead to you being referred to as a trafficker. Then transfer, that's if you receive someone and then you transfer them to another person. Then harboring, when you keep them, like maybe in your house, or you keep them somewhere like in a warehouse. And receipt, which is explained in transfer, because to transfer someone, you need to receive them. Then the means, of course, is force, coercion, abduction, fraud or deception, abuse of power, or use of or abuse of someone in a vulnerable position, and receiving payments for someone. You would be a trafficker. And of course, then the purpose. What's the purpose of all these things? Is to exploit this person. So the Trafficking in Persons Act sets this out, but it also distinguishes trafficking from things like smuggling. Because smuggling is when someone pays a smuggler maybe to take them somewhere. There's no coercion, there's no forced labor. This person just wants to move from point A to point B. So yes, we do have an act in place. We do have the Trafficking in Persons Act. And recently there was another act which set out issues of harvesting organs and a lot in Uganda.
Okay. So as we continue, I think that is very helpful. So I would like us to talk about identification of these victims. In most cases, we actually have people who are victims of human trafficking, or even sometimes they have been trafficked in a certain community and they are within those communities and they are integrated in those communities, but yet the people around cannot easily identify them. So I would like you to help someone who is watching this. How are we able to identify these victims of human trafficking? But other than just that alone, how are we able to also identify the perpetrators? How are we able to know that this guy could be actually a perpetrator? And are there some legal regulations that actually help this group of people, the victims, and are there laws that are against this kind of perpetrators?
Yes, TIP Act does stipulate all these things, who the victim is, who the perpetrator is, and what are the repercussions for trafficking, who would qualify as a victim of trafficking. So one is forced labor. This is someone who works against their will. You know someone, they work day and night, or they barely rest because you can't work 24 hours. And they are always working. You can see like the person is tired. Even when they're sick, they have to go to work. That would be a victim of trafficking. Those are victims of trafficking. Children are not supposed to work. It has to be too laborious. Like you can't tell a child to carry like 20 kilos of sand or something like that. There should be work that makes sense. For example, if a child is doing work at home, not in these extreme ways, like some people just exploit children, or like cleaning your room or something like that. That's not trafficking. But if you find a child who's like doing domestic work every day, not going to school, that could be a victim of trafficking. And some of them maybe are moved from the village, maybe their parents have died, they're not getting paid, they're being beaten, or they don't give them food. That could be a victim of trafficking. But also forced labor, that would be like they work all day, that could be a victim of trafficking as well. And then sexual exploitation, just over there selling themselves. But really what happens with these people is someone traps you. And usually, sometimes in like romantic partners, or like maybe you have a friend, you think of this person as your friend, and they're like, oh no, come, I have a job for you. And before you know it, you're prostitute, nobody's going to understand. So you find yourself remaining in that situation. And traffickers are serious. That doesn't happen all the time. The young soldiers, I think you've heard of this. Is when young people are like 9-year-olds are forced to go to wars, carrying guns, shooting people. Children are not supposed to be involved in wars. That's usually a victim of trafficking. And it matter if the person has consented, because people say, oh yeah, I told this person and they said yes, but you tricked them. They really didn't know what they were going in for, because if you told me that I'm going to work 20 hours a day, then I wouldn't say yes to you. Another thing would be domestic servitude. We see this. We see many people who go to Saudi Arabia, they've been recruited, they've been told, oh, you're going to get this job, you're going to get paid this much. They get there, they're not allowed to leave, you don't get food, you work like 23 hours, you sleep on the floor, you can't talk to the people at home, nobody knows what happens to you. When you get sick, that's when you're out or whatever. If you say you want to leave, you're not allowed to leave. That's when you know you're a victim. Because if I say I am done with my job, nobody should force me to remain. I should be left to leave. That's a sign that you are a victim of trafficking. If you cannot leave your place of work, whether by coercion or, or by force. If I say I don't want to do this work anymore, it's not good for me, I'm tired, you shouldn't force me to remain in that job. Then online sexual exploitation. I think now we see this a lot with children or just like normal people. They send you messages every day, you become friends, and then maybe you send them a couple of pictures which are inappropriate. Then they start to blackmail you. Say, now, if you don't do this, I'm going to release these pictures, so you have to send me more. And they're using your pictures to make money, and you're not benefiting from it. All you're getting is threats that if you don't do this and you don't do that, I release your pictures and you will be embarrassed, right? So that is also a victim of trafficking. And then forced marriage, we know this. Nobody should be forced to get married. A marriage is a contract where people agree to be together. Of course, there's some cultures where they have arranged marriages, but there is some degree of...
In this next segment, I would like you to highlight how we identify the perpetrators. But as you highlight that, I would like you to also help someone who is watching this right now. Maybe they could be victims, or maybe they know people who are actually victims of human trafficking, but they do not know how can they actually gather evidence to criminalize this kind of perpetrators. So help us understand how we can identify these perpetrators in just a brief, because we are running out of time, but also help us understand how best can we collect evidence against these perpetrators so that we can be able to criminalize them.
Okay. Yes. So you cannot collect evidence. The people in charge of collecting evidence is the police. So if you identify somebody who you think is a victim of trafficking, you go to the police and you report and you say what you have seen. I think this person is a victim of trafficking. These days, police officers have a desk for trafficking in persons. Ask for that desk and say, I know this person, they're doing this and they're doing that, and I think they could be a victim of trafficking. And then you report, and then you remove yourself from the situation, because traffickers can be very dangerous people and you don't want to put yourself in that dangerous position unless you maybe can help them to move them and maybe take them to the police, but always be wary of your security. And then how to identify a perpetrator. This is someone who uses force against someone who has unnatural control over another person. So let's say that you identify this person as a victim, but this other perpetrator is always around. They don't allow them to talk to someone. If they want to make a call, they have to use this person's phone, right? That's how you would see. This person seems to be uneasy when they're around this person. They seem like quiet, that would be a perpetrator. Sometimes people be walking in public and you do not know that they're walking with someone who is trafficking them, because this person sometimes pretends to be friendly, but you can read the body language and you can see that this person doesn't feel safe, or they don't feel like they have control over their own movements. That's one of the ways you could tell that someone is a perpetrator.
All right, thank you so much, Diana. I think this is very helpful. So whoever would like to get more of this information, we have actually done an episode, like I said earlier. You can check us on our social media platforms. You can go on YouTube at Move Network International, or on other platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also on Instagram. Yes, as we continue, because we want to help people, we want to help young people actually get out of this kind of vice. So I would like you to help us talk about witness protection, because we realize there are so many people out there who actually sometimes they know that these things are going on, but they feel sorry for themselves and they fear for their lives, because they do not know what might become of them. So, can you help someone who is out there who actually has identified a victim, or they are even a victim themselves, but they are scared and they don't know whether the law can actually protect them, or if there's someone who can actually protect them? How is the witness protection policy? And is it even there here in Uganda? Yes.
Yes, there is witness protection. Like if you are giving evidence against a trafficker, the police will do their best to protect you. They may move you out of your community, but you have to be willing to move, because you're in danger usually where you live. They probably move you away and move you to a shelter, and they have to track your movements. You have to stop calling people, telling people where you are, posting on social media, where people can find you, things like that. So they would make some how can I say, what's the word? They would try to protect you. And there are also organizations like Willow and others who would put up witnesses or victims of trafficking who are scared to go back into their communities, who have suffered trafficking, and they think if they were to go back, they would be harmed. So yeah, there is protection for you. And many times try to be anonymous. Don't be out there making all these noises, you attract traffickers yourself. So you can report and the police will do their best to protect you. And usually they try not to put your face out there, or they just say, yeah, we have information or something like that. And they try to protect you. So just don't put yourself out there in public, posting pictures on the internet where you can be found.
All right, that is wonderful. So then before I ask my last questions, I would like you to help someone, because most people know of the police being the run-to place, but I would like you to tell us, are there other legal personnel or organizations or companies, I don't know, they might be private or government organizations or companies, that anyone can actually run to whistleblow in case of this kind of things, or even if there is any toll-free number, or maybe a paid for, or I don't know, something that a victim can actually use, or someone within the community can actually use to report this kind of crimes, so that they are able to get help.
Okay, but I could get it to you and give it to you. There is a hotline where you can call anonymously and report, and the trafficking persons unit at Kibuli, they'll be able to help you once you identify a victim of trafficking. And also, what was your other question? Are there other people? Yes, there are. There's a coalition of prevention of trafficking in persons, which is a group of NGOs that deal in prevention of trafficking in persons. And I can send you details after this call. But even Shalene from Willow, she can give you all that information, and then maybe you can post it for your viewers, where you can go and get redress. And there are many survivors who have got help from these people and been able to live their lives again after trafficking.
Okay, I think after this call, you will share those details with me, so that we can attach them to this video, so that we are able to help people. So we have run out of time. Finally, I would like you to give us some information on some of the details when it comes to the prosecution process. How is the prosecution process like for this kind of issue? Yes.
Well, prosecution is always the same. First, police collection of evidence, then you appear before court, the perpetrator to plead. Then you have to, of course, they have to prove, is there a case against this person? Is there enough substantial evidence to prove that this person has done what they say they have done? And this is where many of our cases fail, because sometimes in the collection of evidence, you lose evidence, or you do not have good enough evidence to present. And so some of these perpetrators. But if it is proved, then they'll ask, of course, the accused to plead, whether guilty or not guilty. And then the prosecution will present their case and say, okay, this person we know is a trafficker. This is what they have done. This is how we collected evidence. Maybe these are the documents. These are the bank accounts. These are some pictures. And then the defense will say, but no, this is not true. Generally, the legal process takes its course, and then the judge and the assessors would decide whether this person is guilty or not, and then of course there'll be sentencing, judgment, and then sentencing, and usually that's how it goes. But it's not straightforward, and sometimes it can take years. So you always have to prepare yourself for that mentally, but there's a lot of support where that goes, and that's some of the work I do as a lawyer, supporting victims of trafficking when they go to court, through the process, explaining to them what's happening, because sometimes cases don't happen in and it's not like TV. It's boring, it's long. So yeah, that's generally, quickly, that's the process.
All right, I think we have come to the close of this episode. For more information, please check us out. So I'm going to give you, Diana, a time for just some few seconds to give us a closing remarks, and we shall call it a wrap for today.
Okay, well, I don't really have closing remarks, but thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this work, thinking by their friends, by their relatives. So this is really important work. People need to be aware of what's happening. People are seriously harvesting other people's organs and trafficking them to other countries. So just be alert. And in case you have any questions, just call the police or the helpline. And there are many people who will be willing to give you information.
All right, thank you so much, Diana. Thank you for being part of this show. We really have learned a lot from you, and I'm sure even our viewers, our audience who are going to be watching this podcast are going to learn something. We are glad that we had you today. Thank you so much. See you guys next time. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.